Hurricane Ida's death tolls are exposing New York City's real estate crisis. If you've been on the internet this past week, you've probably seen some funny videos on TikTok or YouTube about the flood that happened in New York City. But after all the fun is over, we've been finding bodies. And most of these bodies are coming out of illegal apartments in New York City. This disaster has shown light on a massive problem we have in New York, and that's the housing crisis. An illegal apartment is illegal because it's deemed not safe to live in. It's usually a basement or cellar that the homeowner converted to make an extra unit. And since it's in the basement or cellar, there's usually only one entrance or exit. And when the flooding occurred, the water swept in a lot of garbage and pushed around furniture, trapping people behind closed doors. Other problems illegal apartments have are that there's usually not enough light and ventilation, and they are fire hazards. The problem is these apartments are everywhere, the city knows about them, and they literally do nothing. Let me just show you how easy it would be to find an illegal apartment. It literally takes only 10 seconds.
All you have to do is walk down the street and count the number of mailboxes in front of a building. Over here, there's 4 mailboxes. You take a look at the certificate of occupancy, and this is a 3-unit building. Chances are there's an illegal basement apartment here.
See, how simple was that? Either the city knows or I'm the greatest detective on YouTube. So why doesn't the city do anything about this? Just think about it. Where are these people going to go if the city starts enforcing illegal apartments? These illegal basement apartments are usually rented well below market value, and they're the only thing some of these people can afford. But since dozens of people have died and it's all over the news, the city is going to be forced to do something about it. So what's causing this housing crisis? First, there's a housing shortage. Vacancies temporarily shot up right when the pandemic started because people were fleeing the city. But now, since companies are forcing employees to go back to the office soon, vacancy rates have plummeted. There are just not enough apartments. Second, the city's regulation for creating more housing is just ridiculous. And third, I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, but government-assisted programs are causing rents in low-income areas to skyrocket. Just hear me out. I'm gonna give you guys some examples of rents in the Bronx, which I believe is one of the most affordable boroughs in New York City. Aside from Staten Island, but who the hell really wants to live on Staten Island? So let's just do a quick Google search on worst neighborhoods in New York City. You scroll down and you see that Hunts Point is the worst neighborhood in New York City to live in. Now let's hop on Zillow and see how much a, let's say, 2-bedroom apartment would cost. Now let's look at this lovely $2,350 a month apartment with no pictures. The only picture is Section 8. Let's look at this other apartment over here, also advertising rental assistance in Section 8. Let's take a look at a third one. You get the same idea. Rental assistance, Section 8. Do you see the trend here? Now keep in mind, this is considered one of the worst neighborhoods in New York City to live in, and it's a low-income area. Now let's look at the best neighborhood in the Bronx to live in. If you scroll down, you see rank number 1 is Riverdale. Riverdale is a mid to high-income neighborhood, has great schools, and one of the lowest crime rates. If you look for a 2-bedroom apartment in this area, you see some going for $2,250. Another one going for $2,450. Notice how none of them blatantly advertise Section 8 or housing assistance. Do you see the difference? How does that make sense? The worst and the best neighborhood in the Bronx to live in have very similar rents. That's because in nice areas, landlords have a lot of options when it comes to tenants. Yeah, the tenants with the government-assisted programs can pay the rent, but when you have the choice between someone on a government-assisted program and a doctor making $200,000 and his wife is a lawyer who's also making $200,000, who would you go for, right? It's actually really hard to find an apartment in a nice area and get accepted with a rental assisted or Section 8 voucher. So what can these people with vouchers or government assistance do? Not much. They just have to go look in neighborhoods that would accept their rental assistance or Section 8. The landlords in the not so nice areas know exactly how this game is played. They know that those nice areas have better options. So all these people with Section 8 or rental assistance are not likely to find an apartment in a nice area. So they have to settle for the not so nice areas. The landlords also know that these programs usually have a high limit on what they're willing to pay because they want to give these tenants an opportunity to find an apartment in a nice area because they were generally more expensive. But this idea backfired because these people aren't getting accepted in apartments in nice areas. And now the landlords in the not so nice areas like Hunts Point know where the upper limit is, and they just set their apartment's price close to that upper limit. When the tenants with these voucher programs have nowhere else that accepts them, they have no choice but to accept apartments in Hunts Point. When that happens, that upper limit becomes the new market value of that area. When landlords start to see that they can rent to Section 8 tenants for $2,350, they're not gonna rent to a regular family who's low income for $1,800. Why would they? They'll just set their price at $2,350 also and wait for Section 8 tenants to come. This really screws over those people who are low income but don't have these government assisted programs. So what other options do they have than to find an apartment that doesn't qualify for Section 8? An illegal apartment. Now, before I get a ton of comments talking about these greedy, dirty landlords, just think to yourself. If somebody offered you a 50% raise on your job and you're doing the exact same work, would you take it? It's human nature to want more for what you have. The second issue is the city makes it so hard to create new housing. You have to jump through so many hoops. I've actually gone through the process of converting a 2-unit house to a 3-unit house, and it was the biggest pain in the I will never do it again. If you want to legalize an apartment, you need to create 2 forms of egress. So for a basement apartment, you could just dig out an entrance into the backyard and put in some stairs. Sounds easy, right? Not so fast. Now that you're making a 2-unit property into a 3-unit property, there are a ton of new rules that you have to follow. First of all, it needs to be wheelchair accessible. So that means if you don't have a ground level apartment, which I didn't have, you need to have a way for a wheelchair to get into one of the units. And there's no exception to that. Every single property that's newly built or converted for 3 or more units has to follow this rule. I needed to put in a handicap elevator to bring somebody up 10 steps of stairs. That's $30,000 down the drain. And not only is it just the initial setup, you need to have somebody come maintain it all year round, and it needs to be inspected and recorded every single year, or the city will slap you with a $5,000 fine, regardless of if anybody living in that property is in a wheelchair. So literally, I just paid $30,000 for a closet that technically, I can't even use as a closet because I can't put anything in there. You also have to make all the doors wider, at least 36 inches, and all the hallways wider so a wheelchair can easily go in and out. All the landings need to be wider as well because the person in the wheelchair needs to be able to turn. You need to add bars into the bathrooms so that somebody in a wheelchair can lift themselves up. And it's not as simple as screwing a bar into the wall. You actually have to reinforce it so that they can take the weight of that person. So to reinforce it, those new tiles you might have put in need to go because you need to rip up the wall, install a wood beam behind the wall so it can support that bar. You also have to install a sprinkler system throughout the entire property. That's another $30,000 down the drain. But wait, now your water service line is too small because it can't supply enough water for all the water lines that you had before, plus the new sprinkler system. So now you have to upgrade that. That involves you digging a trench from your property all the way out to the city main, and then actually drilling a larger hole into the city main and installing a whole new water line. There goes another $30,000. Not to mention, getting plans and permits to do all of this work is going to take you months. You're looking at about $100,000 of work and architect fees, and also half a year of construction. It's a huge investment that not a lot of landlords are willing to do. Why not just buy another property and you can rent that out? Why would you create more housing if the city's going to make you jump through so many hoops? But you might be like, Ben, I've been to Long Island City recently. There's tons of new buildings going up. There's gonna be so much housing available. But think to yourself, are these people who are living in these illegal basements going to afford any of these luxury high-rise buildings? Definitely not. They're not gonna be able to fork out $4,000 or $5,000 a month in rent. What do you think the city should do about this problem? Please leave it down in the comment section below. And if you want to see more videos about real estate investing or real estate in general, please hit the subscribe button. Thanks a lot and have a good day.